Fabian Hamilton, Member of Parliament for Leeds North East. Well, the first time I ever really heard of Leeds Jewish Housing Association was not long after I was selected to be the parliamentary candidate for Leeds North East for the Labour Party in 1990. Now, in those days, I was a Labour councillor for a ward in West Leeds, where we have no Jewish community at all. And I'd just been selected 3 years after I'd become a councillor. I was in my mid-30s. And one of my colleagues suggested, well, why don't you go to the annual general meeting of Leeds Jewish Housing? Of course, you know who works for it, Sheila Saunders. And I'd already met Sheila a few times, and she was pretty dynamic. So she invited me along, and I attended the first annual general meeting. I didn't know anybody, and I didn't really know the dynamics at all, but I learnt an awful lot. And thereafter, I went to almost every annual general meeting for many, many years and got to know who the key characters and figures were, and more importantly, got to know and understand what Leeds Jewish Housing Association actually did. And I think Sheila was very much one of my teachers and mentors there, because she encouraged not just the attendance, but the involvement as well. And of course, Leeds City Council has a part to play, and I was a councillor as well as the parliamentary candidate. Sheila, of course, was quite partisan, as you probably remember. Well, I think what I see here is a highly motivated, well-organised community organisation that's determined to provide appropriate housing for the people that belong to that community, whatever their background. But obviously the most important thing is they have to be Jewish, of Jewish heritage, of the Jewish faith. They have to have a Jewish connection. And I think what that's done is it's brought the community very strongly together, because this is a community that's been established certainly in this city for, well over 100 years now, 1878. So a long time, well back into the 19th century. And so it understands and has learnt what its community needs. And many members of the community have done extremely well in their chosen professions, in their work, in their businesses, but others haven't done so well. And what I've always found about the Jewish community, especially in Leeds, because it's rather smaller than where I grew up in northwest London, is the caring attitude that just because we've done well and we're comfortably off does not mean to say everybody is. And therefore we need to look after those who have been less fortunate than we have. Now, if the whole of society outside the Jewish community took that attitude, we might have a more stable, happier society throughout the UK. So I see a highly motivated group of people who really want to give back to the community that gave them much of what they are. If we didn't have Leeds Jewish Housing, I don't think we'd have a Leeds Jewish community. We'd have the shuls. We'd have people who attended, people who worshipped, people who wanted to continue in the faith, but they would not be as united as they are because of Leeds Jewish Housing Association. It brings the whole community together, and I don't think there would be this. I mean, in many ways, what we've done is to punch, I hate this term, but punch well above our weight as a community within this city. You know, we are very small in number, concentrated mainly in this part of the city of Leeds. Leeds is nearly 800,000 people spread across a vast geography, and here we are in one very small area, and yet everybody in this city knows about the Jewish community, knows about the contribution it's made, and I don't think we'd have had that, certainly in the last 7 decades, if we hadn't had Leeds Jewish Housing Association. As I said earlier, Sheila was one of my great mentors. And when I first got to know her in the early 90s, I fought the 1992 general election as Labour candidate. I didn't win, but I was reselected to fight again in 97, as it turned out. And Sheila rang me up one day and said, you know, I'm really split here. I'm split between my Jewish side and my feminist side, because obviously you're not a woman, but am I more Labour or am I more feminist? I've always fought for women's rights and for feminism, and for women to overcome the discrimination very often they felt within the Jewish community and outside. And yet here you are, a Jewish candidate. Now, I'm not a religious man, I'm not married to a Jewish woman, my children aren't technically therefore Jewish, although they're very interested in their heritage. But she said, I've decided I want you to be our candidate, so I'm going to support you. And I thought that was it was so moving when she said that. Well, obviously the first thing is another 70 years I won't be around to see most of that, but the foundations have been fantastic. What the Housing Association has done has been terrific. It's evolved with the times, because I mean, look at the new developments. They are absolutely astounding. And what you've managed to do is, with the land you've got, is concentrate more housing with better facilities and more space into the same area by building up. Of course, it's not an original idea, but it's been done, I think, fantastically well. And when I look out there, when I speak to people who live in many of the apartments, it's been a great advancement.